There is a moment, and I think everyone who has ever truly loved someone knows the one I'm talking about, where you look across the room at the person you chose, the person you built your whole quiet world around, and something in your chest just shifts. Not breaks, not yet, just shifts, like the ground beneath a house that hasn't cracked yet but has already decided it will. That moment for me came on an ordinary Tuesday. No dramatic music, no warning. Just a Tuesday, and the slow, suffocating realization that the person sitting across from me had been living a completely different life than the one I thought we were sharing. I want to tell you this story not because I want your sympathy, I don't need it anymore. I'm telling you this because I know there's someone watching this right now who is still in the thick of it, still sleeping on the wrong side of a bed that used to feel like home, still reading old messages trying to find the exact line where the love became a lie, still asking themselves what they did wrong, and I need you to hear what I'm about to say before anything else. You didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes the most painful chapters of your life are not punishments. Sometimes they are redirections so violent, so disorienting, that they feel like destruction. But they are not. They are construction. And I am living proof. Let me take you back. I was someone who loved completely. I don't say that to paint myself as a saint, because God knows I wasn't perfect. But when I loved with everything. I was the person who remembered the small things, the favorite songs, the foods they hated, the way they needed silence after a hard day at work. I built my love like architecture, carefully, with intention, with the kind of attention to detail that most people reserve for their greatest ambitions. And for a long time, I believed that was enough. I believed that if you loved someone right, if you showed up fully, consistently, without holding back, that love would protect you, that it would come back to you in equal measure. What nobody tells you is that some people don't love the way you love. Some people look at your openness and see not something beautiful, but something useful. Some people will take the architecture you built, move in, get comfortable, and then quietly, methodically begin dismantling it from the inside, all while you're standing right there, handing them the tools and calling it trust. That's what happened to me. The signs were always there. I know that now. The unexplained absences dressed up as long work days. The phone that was suddenly always face down. The emotional distance that came in waves, pulling away, then flooding back in with just enough warmth to make me question what I'd felt. There was always a reason, always a reasonable explanation delivered with just enough sincerity to make me feel foolish for doubting. And because I loved them, because I had already built so much of my emotional world around this person, I chose to believe. Over and over and over again, I chose to believe. That is not weakness. I need you to understand that. Choosing to trust the person you love is not weakness. It is one of the bravest things a human being can do. The weakness would have been staying after I found out. And I didn't stay. The day it all came apart was both the worst and the most important day of my life. I remember the feeling more than the details. The way my body went cold even though the room was warm. The strange clinical calmness that washed over me in the first few seconds before the reality caught up and hit me all at once like a wave I hadn't seen coming. I remember looking at this person I had sacrificed for, rearranged my life for, defended to people who had tried to warn me, and feeling something I hadn't expected to feel. Not just heartbreak, not just rage, grief. The kind of grief that has nothing to do with death but feels exactly like it. Because I wasn't just losing a relationship, I was losing the version of reality I had believed in. I was losing the story I had told myself about my own life. And then, underneath all of that, something else. Something quieter. Something I didn't have a name for yet. It would take me months to understand that what I felt beneath the grief was the very first whisper of freedom. I didn't know it then. In those first weeks, I just felt broken. I won't romanticize the pain for you because it deserves more respect than that. It was ugly. It was sleepless nights and conversations that replayed in my head on a loop, each time finding new details I had missed, new moments where I had been fooled. It was the particular loneliness of grieving something that the other person never took seriously enough to mourn. It was rebuilding a sense of self that had quietly, over time, become so intertwined with someone else's presence that I had almost forgotten who I was before them. But here is what I also remember about that season. I remember the morning. I cannot tell you exactly which morning, but I remember it, where I woke up and the first thought in my head wasn't about them. It was something small, something mundane, but it was mine. And I lay there in the stillness of that ordinary morning and I thought, there you are. There I am, still here, still intact beneath all that rubble. That was the turning point. That quiet, unremarkable morning where I reclaimed myself. Healing, I have learned, is not linear. It is not a clean upward trajectory where each day is measurably better than the last. It is chaotic and nonlinear, and sometimes it loops back on itself in ways that feel like failure, but are actually just part of the process. There were days I thought I was over it, fully through it, and then something, a song, a smell, a random location on a map, would pull me back under for an afternoon. And I had to learn not to punish myself for those afternoons. I had to learn that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means integrating. It means finding a way to carry what happened without letting it carry you. What helped me was returning to myself. And by that, I mean returning to the things that had always been mine. Before the relationship, before the compromise, before I had slowly, almost imperceptibly, started shrinking myself to make room for someone who was never truly making room for me. I started working again with a focus and a ferocity I hadn't felt in years. There was something clarifying about the betrayal, as strange as that sounds. When you lose something that was never truly what you believed it to be, you are suddenly freed from the weight of maintaining the illusion. And that freedom, even when it's painful freedom, even when it's freedom you didn't ask for, is fuel. I used every single drop of it. I poured myself into building something real, something that no one could take from me, something that wasn't dependent on another person's loyalty or honesty or consistency. I poured myself into my work, my craft, my goals, the ones that had been quietly waiting on the back burner while I was busy loving someone who was loving me in half measures. I got up earlier. I stayed up later, not because I was running from the pain, but because I had finally stopped running from myself. And that made all the difference. Now let me tell you about karma, because this story has a karma chapter, and I want to be careful about how I tell it. Because I've grown enough to know that real karma isn't about revenge. It's not about watching someone suffer and feeling satisfied. Real karma is subtler than that. It's the universe quietly, methodically, restoring balance in ways you couldn't have engineered yourself even if you tried. They moved on quickly. Of course they did. People who operate the way they operated always do. There was another person, then another chapter, another situation, and from the outside it all looked fine. It looked like they had walked away unscathed. And for a while, I'll be honest with you, that stung. There is a particular kind of pain in watching someone who hurt you appear to thrive immediately after. It makes you question everything. It makes you wonder if the universe is paying attention at all. But here is what I know now that I didn't know then. The universe is always paying attention. It just doesn't work on your timeline. And the things that were unraveling in their life while they were busy performing happiness on the outside, those things were real, and they were consequential, and they eventually became visible. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, but in that quiet, grinding, inevitable way that truth always eventually surfaces. Relationships built on the same dishonesty they showed me began to reveal their own cracks. The patterns they carried didn't disappear just because they found a new audience for them. Patterns never do. That's the thing about character. It follows you everywhere. You cannot outrun who you actually are. And while all of that was unfolding in their world, mine was expanding. I want to be clear about something. My success, the success that is still being built, still in progress, still becoming, is not a response to what they did. It is not a product of wanting to prove something to them. It took me a long time to get here, but I genuinely, wholeheartedly mean this. They are not the reason I am working hard. They are not the reason I get up in the morning. They stopped being the reason for anything a long time ago, and that is perhaps the greatest victory of this entire story. Not the success itself, but the fact that the success has nothing to do with them. I build now for myself. I build for the version of me that was sitting in the rubble of that relationship, wondering if the pain would ever become something useful. I build for the person I was on those sleepless nights, replaying everything, questioning everything. I build for the quiet Tuesday morning when I woke up and finally had my first thought that was completely, entirely my own. That is who I do this for. And that clarity, that clean, uncomplicated sense of purpose, is something I would never have found if the betrayal hadn't stripped everything else away. The betrayal was the fire, and I know now that some things can only be forged in fire, not destroyed by it. Forged. I am not where I want to be yet. I want to say that plainly because I think there's something dangerous about narratives that skip the middle. The truth is, I am in the middle right now. The success is coming. I can feel it the way you can feel a weather change before it arrives. In your bones, in the atmosphere, in the quality of the work, and the momentum of the days. But it hasn't fully landed yet, and I'm okay with that. More than okay. Because I've learned that the journey toward something is where you actually become the person capable of holding it. Every sacrifice I am making right now, every early morning, every late night, every moment of doubt that I choose to push through instead of surrender to, is depositing something into an account that no one can access but me. No one can betray me out of this. No one can lie to me out of this. No one can undermine what I am quietly, steadily, relentlessly constructing in the privacy of my own discipline. And that is the most protected thing I have ever built. So here's what I want to leave you with. If you are the person I think you might be, the one who is still healing, still finding the floor beneath your feet, still trying to make sense of how someone you loved could treat you the way they did, stop trying to make sense of it. Some people are not capable of the kind of love you offered them. That is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their limitations. And the sooner you stop measuring yourself by the standards of someone who was never capable of truly seeing you, the sooner you will begin to see yourself clearly. And when you begin to see yourself clearly, everything changes. The work changes. The focus changes. The relationship you have with your own potential changes completely. The betrayal was not the end of your story. It was the most brutal, most disorienting, most unexpectedly necessary plot twist in a story that is still being written, and I promise you, the chapters ahead are worth every single page of the pain you are carrying right now. Keep building, keep healing, keep going. The karma has already been set in motion. Your only job is to make sure that when it lands, you are so busy becoming who you were always supposed to be that you almost miss it. Almost.